Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you. Because
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first.
Gabby Petito says Brian Laundrie grabbed her face and admits he hit her. Why didn't the police take action then? Why did they determine Brian Laundrie was the victim? Ashley Banfield joins us tonight to talk about some new video just released. And in the wake of the U.S. Olympic gymnastics hearing on Capitol Hill, a bombshell report about professional women's soccer. 2 U.S. soccer stars accuse a prominent coach of sexual coercion. He's now been fired, and this weekend's games have been canceled. How prominent are predators in women's sports? And a breakthrough antiviral pill that helps those with COVID stay out of the hospital. Yet another example of American ingenuity. But now, calls for vaccine mandates on domestic flights. Weren't we told that airline circulation was the best and safest? We're going to ask our top doc about that. And we're staying on the Policing in America beat as officers rescue an unconscious man from a burning car. Great to have you with us as we wrap up the week. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. The pulse of America tonight. Hug your daughters. An entire American sports league, the National Women's Soccer League, has suspended its season, at least through the weekend, because of allegations of sexual abuse and coercion by one of its coaches. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But first, new police body cam video from that encounter in Moab, Utah, between Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie that compelled someone to call 911. In it, Gabby admits that Brian Laundrie hit her.
So, what happened here and here?
I'm not sure. It was a...
So there's 2 people that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you. There's 2 people saying that they saw him punch you. Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you.
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first. Well, he grabbed me with his nail, and I guess that's why it was. I definitely have a cut right here, because I can feel it.
Yeah.
When I touch it, it burns.
So you can hear the officer there trying to pull the information out of Gabby, who was hesitant to say the least. The officer then even talks about his own daughter.
I have a daughter almost your age, and I'm looking at you not so much like a suspect, but also as kind of a victim. The stuff you did today that contributed to this, because you both contributed to this, is as a result of your inability to cope with the anxiety and the stress that you're having.
So then she ultimately takes the blame for what happened herself.
Did he hit you though? I mean, it's okay if you're saying you hit him, and then I understand if he hit you, but we want to know the truth if he actually hit you.
I guess, yeah, but I hit him first. I know that he definitely gets frustrated with me a lot because I have a lot of anxiety, and he definitely has anxiety too. But I don't want to be separated.
You can have anxiety?
Yeah, no, we're a team, please.
There's no what? What is it?
No, we're a team, please. He's gonna give me so much anxiety. Can we just have a driving ticket?
Well, as a husband and a dad, it's heartbreaking to see this. It is for all of us, for sure. But among the questions right now, why are we just learning about this part of the video now? And if investigators have at least known about it from the beginning and had a reason to sit on it. And what about Gabby's family? Did they know about this? Did her dad, who at one point, when he spoke with News Nation's Ashley Banfield early on, didn't seem to have a reason to suspect Laundrie?
No, and I said it before, no, I haven't seen red flags, but that's not something you're going to tell your dad, because your dad's a fixer, right? No dad wants to see their daughter cry. So, no, if I would have seen a red flag, I'd be all up in arms about it. But to be honest, I hadn't.
Well, speaking of red flags, what about the police in Utah? Did they drop the ball here? The law in Utah says the primary duty of an officer responding to a domestic violence call is to protect the victim, and the peace officer shall arrest without a warrant or shall issue a citation to any person that the peace officer has probable cause to believe has committed an act of domestic violence. Now, here's what applies specifically to this case. Since Gabby also admitted to hitting Brian and hitting him first, if the officer determines that one person was the predominant physical aggressor, The officer need not arrest the other person alleged to have committed domestic violence. There's a lot to digest in all of this, and here now to help us do that is Ashley Banfield, who has been covering this extensively. Ashley, I guess before we start, answer that first question. Why do you think we're just seeing this video now?
There could be a lot of reasons. Sometimes, believe it or not, it's clerical. I know that sounds crazy, but the other reason is that this is a national case. It's an FBI case, and the FBI may have wanted to figure out exactly what was on all of the body cams and how it might have figured into the case. So I wouldn't jump to any conclusions. I certainly think that the Moab police weren't going to try to hide a third body cam because I would assume they would know how terrible that would look. Sure. So I'm not going to jump to that. I do think that when you're in a story that has such national scrutiny, a lot of people cross T's twice and dot I's twice. They don't just sort of jump knee-jerk into whatever press request comes along. And I understand that, having worked in the press and wanting that material released. So I'm not going to go there just yet that there's anything sinister about not releasing it.
So I'm sure you've seen, it runs an hour. We looked at it today, and there are a number of clips that stood out. I want to play one of them for you and get your comments after.
Sure.
The reason why they don't give us discretion on these things is because too many times women who are at risk want to go back to their abuser. They just wanted him to stop, and they don't want to have to be separated. They don't want him charged. They don't want him to go to jail. And then they end up getting worse and worse treatment, and then they end up getting killed.
So police talking about what to do here, Ashley, and you can hear in these tapes, they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to handle this. And I guess in the end, you come away from this realizing that they looked at Brian as more of the victim in this, and it really determined how they proceeded with the case.
It is extremely hard if you have someone who is on scene saying over and over again that he or she, in this case, she, was the perpetrator. I can't even tell you how complicated and how frequent these domestic disturbances are, Joe. They are some of the hardest work that police do. Right. And here's the other side of the coin. In retrospect, this is awful, all of it, right? I struggle to watch this, and I know you do as well. We're both parents. But I also have to tell you, if you take a 30,000-foot view of this particular incident compared to all the other ones that they probably responded to that day, that night, and the next day as well, this one was pretty tame. They go to a lot of domestics where they're taking people to the hospital and they're, having to draw guns. I mean, there are some extraordinarily dangerous and injurious domestic incidents. So if you put yourselves in their shoes, they're not seeing a murderer in 2 weeks. They're seeing, a couple that had a spat, and she's admitting to it. So I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt on this.
Exactly. But for more context, Ashley, they did say, I don't think this would digress into a situation where he's going to be a battered man.
Correct. And I also think that, we also have to realize that, and this is a hard statistic, and I'll get it wrong, but I'm going to give you a ballpark. More than 60, and it might be higher than that, percent of victims in domestic abuses just don't want to testify. And so you can go through everything. You can charge us with the citations, get the warrant. You can go before the magistrate. You can haul somebody into court. And then ultimately, for all of your extraordinary police or prosecutorial work, everything will go away because just remember Rihanna. She just refused to testify against her boyfriend and had to be compelled to do so, which was so extraordinary. A lot of times they just can't handle the volume of the number of domestics that they know are likely just going to be dismissed because the victims in the cases just don't want to proceed.
Or they're trying to cover for their partner, or they're perhaps afraid of. I mean, these are all red flags that we see, but again, in hindsight, wouldn't it be great? Ashley, I know you'll have much more on this tonight as you continue to do an amazing job covering this story. Thanks for your time with us here tonight.
Hey, Joe, can I just add one more quick comment? And that is this. We are all brilliant after the fact,
Right.
aren't we? We're so good at this, aren't we?
How did we not
That
see
You've got to
this?
live in the
Yeah.
moment. Right. You got to live in that moment, and you've got to know what those police were seeing and what they weren't seeing. I don't think anybody would have ever imagined for a moment that 2 weeks later that young woman would be dead. And it is just heartbreaking to have this conversation with you.
All right, Ashley, again, more tonight, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Thanks again, Ash. I want to turn now to another story about the National Women's Soccer League. Their season is now on hold. The games scheduled for this weekend canceled amid allegations of sexual misconduct against a prominent coach. According to a stunning report from The Atlantic, at least 2 players have accused North Carolina Courage coach Paul Riley of sexual coercion and more. Riley has now been fired. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, psychotherapist and host of Talking Live, joins us now. I don't know where to start with this, Doctor, because it really was a stunning report. But I guess I'll begin with the fact that this had apparently been swirling behind the scenes for years and involved multiple teams. How in the world does this happen?
Well, there's so much embarrassment when it comes to being a victim of sexual abuse. And when you think about these athletes and the coaches and the relationship that they have between each other, they are basically taught to listen to their coach, to do what they are told, to think of themselves as a family, and what happens and whatever is said impacts the whole group. So you can see that there's something about the system that also adds to the secrecy. And therein lies the problem. And so now the good thing is that we're starting to hear about these stories so we can start to look at it and figure out a structural way to reduce this from happening.
Well, the problem with this, though, is, Doctor, at least one of the players brought this up to her team in 2015. Now, that team didn't renew the coach's contract, but apparently, I don't know whether nothing was said about it. There apparently was an investigation, but the coach was then hired by another team.
And that's the problem. And hopefully that will not happen moving into the future. I think we know the damage that happens when young girls, mostly young girls in this case, are victims. And they have so many issues, both in terms of mental health and their relationships. They can even be suicidal. We know the devastation that is happening to them. And there's a responsibility also to check out who these coaches are, what their history is, and to train them. Maybe these coaches are just too tempted. Maybe they need to know in advance they might be tempted. They might be attracted to those they are working with, but to understand that they cannot act on those feelings. And if they do, there will be consequences.
I guess
just like teachers.
Right. The other troubling part of this, and there are so many, Doctor, is that if this is happening at this level with some of the, I guess, highest level, Olympic level soccer players, is it happening at the youth and college levels?
Well, it certainly can. And very often these coaches have a very high level. They're well received. They're very powerful. They are successful in terms of getting the wins that some of these institutions are looking for. And so now we really need to look at the whole person. If someone is damaging as a coach, if somebody is behaving inappropriately, abusing their power, that is not okay. And the more people that are talking about this and the more we hear about this, then we can address it. And it needs to be addressed because it has been going on for a long time and we do need to put a stop to it.
I did reach out to a couple of friends and a couple of former and even a current player as well. They were all, they said, angry, upset, exhausted, and not ready to speak out right now. They will be at some point, and we will look forward to having them on the broadcast to explain exactly what they went through and what they are going through and what will change moving forward as the season is now on hold. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, psychotherapist, host of Talking Live, thanks for your time and adding your insight tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We are staying on the Policing in America beat. Officers rescue an unconscious man from a burning car. That's ahead. But tragedy outside of Chicago as a trooper shot on an Illinois expressway has now died. More on that as well. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. An Illinois state trooper shot and killed today on an expressway in Chicago. The trooper was rushed to a hospital in critical condition, but later died. The incident shut down traffic in the city. A fellow trooper pleading for help over police radios and a clear path to the hospital, but it was not enough. Meantime, a police officer and paramedic in Tennessee find a car in flames as they use a fire extinguisher to prevent a potential explosion. That's when they found something else, an unconscious passenger still inside.
Get him out. Get him out. Right.
Cause of the crash remains unknown. Cookeville police officer David Baker cut the driver's seatbelt to free him from the flames. Meantime, as these officers risk their lives, the governor of California is signing reform legislation with sweeping changes to how police officers do their jobs. Among the changes, the minimum age now for becoming a police officer, 21, up from 18. Chokeholds are banned, and if a police officer witnesses an act of excessive force, he or she must intervene. Meantime, more scrutiny. A new study reporting that more than half of police killings in America do not go reported. So if cops are called to risk their lives and get shot in some cases, as we saw, who would really want to become an officer right now? It's a question we've asked before, and it's a question we'll start with tonight. For Lisa Lockwood, former detective, SWAT team member, her law enforcement CV is impressive. So Lisa, let's start there. A lot of people, a lot of kids grow up wanting to be a police officer. Is that still the case?
Gosh, I would hope so, but what we're seeing right now in the current environment, there is a lot of fear, and they're actually watching their parents leave law enforcement, people taking early retirements, people moving out of the state because they don't like the politics that they're dealing with. I'm from Chicago, as you know, and that scene that we just saw earlier with the trooper being killed was literally 4 blocks from my home where my mother lives. So, you know, my heart right now is just, you know, it feels terrible about watching this and witnessing this and seeing what's happening to law enforcement.
Yeah, and you know as well, we just had 2 officers shot not too long ago. One of them died. Let's move on to these changes in California, Lisa, because there are several of them, and they are geared rather, I guess, toward changing just basically the culture within police. And this is something that we've seen with all of the demonstrations and the protests in the country, for that matter. But what is your take on these changes that we're seeing?
Well, there are quite a few, and I would have to say that I agree with most of these. A lot of law enforcement personnel probably wouldn't back me up on this, but this is what we want. We want police officers who are not rogue cops, who are not part of interdepartmental gangs who feel obligated to protect another officer. We want to clear these people out of there. We want new recruits that are coming in at 21 years of age, which is a great age for maturity, to start a new career and not be indoctrinated into that way of life. Now, it's a small number, but it's there. And those changes need to happen, especially in the sense of not feeling that you can report something. We saw that in the Derek Chauvin case. We see the police officers who were complicit, and that needed to stop. I was horrified to watch that, and all the good cops out there who witnessed that felt the same way as I did. So I think a few of these changes I think will help law enforcement. And then there are a few I think that they could use a little bit more tweaking, especially with decertifying police officers when they did not have a chance for a full review just based on accusations of excessive force or an improper arrest.
Well, that's certainly a common sense answer, and I respect and appreciate that. But as you mentioned, there are more than 36 groups, I believe, out there in California representing police officers, and that includes the California Police Chiefs Association that's opposed to this bill. What's the argument on the other side?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things. If they're going to start opening personnel files, you know, somebody that has accusations, false accusations against a police officer, those go into the file. If they are sustained, it makes sense that you'll be able to open up a file and actually show that we do have a rogue police officer. They were disciplined, but why are they still on the job if they continually have arrests over and over again? And the whole privacy with the unions wanting to protect police officers to a certain extent, I believe that we need to have transparency transparency with that. I think what it gets down to is the fact that police officers don't want their private laundry aired. They want the ability to leave a job and go to another police department, where I do believe decertification definitely is something that we need to look at for a lifetime if we have somebody that just can't handle the use of force continuum and how to deal with people who are erratic. Because that's why we have use of force continuum, to teach people and officers to do the right thing in those heated moments.
Yeah, you mentioned transparency and accountability, and that's clearly what the public wants, Lisa. And I'm sure you saw this New York Times article that points directly to that. More than half of police killings are mislabeled, according to this report and a new study. About 55% of fatal encounters with the police between 1980 and 2018 were listed as another cause of death. And this study looks into the role of medical examiners and coroners. You can see some of the numbers there. What do you make of this study?
What I'd like to know is, what are the internal processes for looking? What's the overseer committee and the internal affairs division for these coroners? Because the forms themselves, after reading that article, I didn't see any type of bias based on the form as far as checking the boxes, what was considered in police custody. Somebody could die in police custody, absolutely, but not be killed by a police officer, overdose on drugs, being cuffed, en route to the hospital, etc. So I think looking at all of those factors regarding the bias in the reporting, that if it is mislabeled, if they are fudging statistics, the data is inaccurate, they need to have their feet put to the fire, and it needs to be addressed.
Well, the data is another thing. I'll ask you about that in a minute. But first, Black Americans, according to this report, were 3.5 times as likely to be killed by police as white Americans. And I'm sure there are a lot of people watching who would say, now you know why there are people in the streets.
Well, yes, we're looking at this, and I have a hard time with data, Joe, because you're looking at different districts, different regions. And if we do a broad stroke to say it all falls under this specific area, if we looked at the criminal element in some of the inner cities and who is involved, and there's always going to be the debate, and there are more black on black crime, there's more gang members, etc. Statistically, what is it showing as far as who is actually involved in the crimes in certain regions, and then why is this not being reported properly?
Well, that's the question, because the data is just so incomplete, Lisa, as you well know. I follow the Washington Post. They do their best, and it's a pretty thorough listing of police-involved shootings and killings. But in the end, they admit they're just going off of media reports and what they're getting from Freedom of Information Acts. It's so incomplete. Why is that?
Yes, and I would have to say we got to look back again in how are they actually collecting the data and doing the reports? What is the check and balance? Every industry has a commission somewhere that they're going to look at, fact finders that are going to help them say, is this true and is this false? Who's collecting the data? Who's submitting the data, and is that person checked? It's unfortunate that we're in a climate where that needs to happen, but that's just the truth of where we are in society. Yeah.
A lot to tackle in that segment. Lisa Lockwood, thanks for joining us to do just that. We appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
Oh, I like your cut, G.
Students, I understand that in the month of October, you're supposed to go to school and slap a staff member. Abort mission, because we want all the smoke.
The latest TikTok challenge beginning today, slap a teacher. I know my 5th grade teacher, Ms. Duncan, wouldn't like that for sure, but do these social media platforms have too much power over kids today? It's a big topic, and we'll get into it next. Now to what could be a revolutionary breakthrough in the fight against the coronavirus. Merck says it has created an antiviral medicine that cuts the risk of hospitalization or death from COVID-19 by half. According to the company, 7.3% of patients of the 773 who got the pill were hospitalized or died through day 29. That's compared with 14% of patients treated with a placebo. Merck is planning to apply to the Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization as soon as possible. So here's what the nation's top infectious disease expert had to say about it.
The news of the efficacy of this particular antiviral is obviously very good news. The company, when they briefed us last night, had mentioned that they will be submitting their data to the FDA imminently. The data are impressive.
So if authorized, it could be the first oral antiviral for COVID-19. Here to talk about these developments and a major announcement for sure is our friend, Dr. Bob Lahita, clinical professor of medicine at Rutgers University. Dr. Bob, it's good to see you again. This sounds like it could be a game changer.
This could be a game changer, Joe. This is really good news. An oral agent, much like Tamiflu, which we've been using, for flu. Before you wind up in the hospital, when the symptoms first come on, you take this pill. Now, it's startling data. And frankly, it's a pill that affects an enzyme that the virus uses to replicate. It's actually against an enzyme called replicase. And it's been in the works for a few months, maybe 6 months. We've heard about it early on. And the data are so promising that this is good for those people out there who don't want to get vaccinated.
I was just going to say, that's an important clarification. This is not a vaccine. This is something that's given to people early on when they get sick.
That's right. It's not a vaccine. I still urge everyone to get vaccinated. But, if you have a breakthrough infection, for example, after your vaccine, you can pop one of these pills when they're approved, and this will probably prevent you from going into the hospital or even dying.
How long do you think that process takes, Doc? And do you think it'll be available within how many months?
Well, I think it's going to be available within 2 to 3 months because it has to go through a number of advisory boards and committees. As you know, we're all very familiar with the FDA, the internal advisory committee of Merck. Then it goes through the government committees and the FDA approval with various scientists, epidemiologists, and chemists. And then it gets approved for emergency use authorization.
Right. It does have its limits, though. It's certainly not as effective, as I understand it, as monoclonal antibodies, which are now in high demand and very expensive. But the benefit with this is the potential reach.
That's right. Its reach is tremendous around the world, particularly in countries where there is no vaccine, where people are dying because the vaccine levels are below 5%, for example, in parts of Africa and Australia, et cetera. So this is a game changer in that regard. But the vaccine is still your best bet to protect you.
Is there something in this, doctor, that would change people's minds about vaccine? I guess I'm wondering if they don't want the vaccine, which is better prevention coverage, would they gladly take a pill once they get it?
Well, pills have side effects. Everything has a side effect in medicine. You take a medicine like a vaccine even has side effects. But the vaccine is tried and true. It's safe. There are hundreds of millions of people who have been getting it. The pill we know very little about. We don't know what the long-term effects may be. So it's a bit of a gamble, Joe.
All right. So one more before we let you go. There's talk of requiring vaccines to fly domestically. We've heard that flying is one of the safest things we can do. What do you tell your patients about flying?
Flying, keep your mask on, wash your hands, the usual stuff, and make sure you social distance when appropriate. Airplane air is very, very pure. It's circulated from up to down, and there's all sorts of specialized antiviral filters that are within airplanes. So it's pretty safe, but you need to take your precautions, and you should be vaccinated, and then you have a guarantee.
All right. Dr. Robert Lahita, it's always good to see you. Thanks for the time on a Friday night.
Thanks, Joe.
Want to bring in now Robbie Suave on this now. He's the senior editor of Reason. So let's pick up on this, Robbie, and ask you just straight up. You need to be vaccinated to fly. You on board?
No, I don't think I would support that, especially if it was a government regulation. If the airlines themselves want to implement that, then that's fine. But I don't know that that needs to be forced on people by the government. Again, if you want to be safe, you can get vaccinated, and then it's really nobody else's concern.
How did I know you were going to say that? Yeah, it's interesting how you are on these things, these mandates. You're okay if the boss does or if your business does. You just don't want the government to do it.
Right. I mean, I think the government doesn't have the authority to do it is another thing. I mean, the government has required us to do so much with regard to plane travel that is completely pointless. We're now 20 years after 9/11. We still take our shoes off and our belts off to board an airplane. There is not a person on earth who thinks that's a necessary security measure because we've tested it over and over again. The TSA misses, the dangerous items, the knives, people, even when the government does it intentionally to test people. It's all stupid, and I would be very wary of that happening again with COVID restrictions on planes.
It seems to me like this is really more to limit the transmission from city to city, and also perhaps another way to try to get more people incentivized to get the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, but I mean, you can't keep, you know, you have to start doing blockades and things to keep different waves of the virus from one city to another. Where there's, I don't think that's going to work. I'm wary of treating the unvaccinated like they're some kind of like alien species or they're second-class citizens. Again, I am very pro-vaccination. I would encourage them to do it, but we got to be, you know, careful about just like how far we're willing to go. Because again, if you're vaccinated, you're in pretty good shape, even if the people around you are not vaccinated.
All right, Robbie,
you're going to have a very low likelihood, even if you do get sick, you're going to have a very low likelihood of an extremely negative COVID outcome.
Right.
That's
if you've
very
been
important to
vaccinated,
remember.
right. That's a great point, Robbie. Let's shift to social media, and I know you've heard about this new TikTok challenge, Slap a Teacher. Teachers are having none of it. Watch this.
Oh, I like your cut, G.
Students, I understand that in the month of October, you're supposed to go to school and slap a staff member. Abort mission, because we want all the smoke.
And I just want to remind my students that there's a reason why I got the nickname John Cena 2 years ago. Just remember that.
To do what to a teacher? Oh, man, I'm going to jail.
All right, we haven't seen any videos yet, Robbie. Do you think we will, or do you think this has been aborted, as one of the teachers there said, in time?
Yeah, I don't think this is. I think it's taken care of. I'm not worried about this. Is this one of those like fake viral social media things that the media falls for every now and then?
Well, they've laid out what the challenges are going to be every month, and that was apparently the challenge this month.
Yeah. No,
I'm with you
I think
on
that
this.
got nipped in the bud.
We'll see. I think you're right. But you just wrote a book that we want to talk about, Tech Panic, Why We Shouldn't Be Afraid of Facebook. And that's certainly not what we just heard in the congressional hearing this week, and Facebook knows it. So did you write this book before you knew all that we know now?
Nothing I've learned in the last 2 weeks has undermined my thesis. In fact, I think my thesis is stronger. Look, I never said there is no downside. There's no problem with social media. Like anything else, if you use too much of it, it can be a problem. But you know, there's a small number of kids who are overusing it, and there's a very simple solution. Government doesn't have to do anything about it. Parents, take the phone away from your children. Limit the amount of time they spend on it. It's not rocket science. When I was a kid, I would have played video games for 24 hours a day, but my mother said you can play for 1 hour and then it has to be done. There's nothing different about this. Any kind of addictive technology, some people will abuse it and have problems, but most people will struggle on just fine.
Robbie Suave in rare form tonight. It's good to have you on a Friday. Robbie, thanks. Take care.
My pleasure.
Our next guest has created the world's first augmented reality social network, and critics are calling it ahead of its time. Octi launched last year. It sees and understands humans, allowing us to do new and exciting things with our smartphone cameras. Joining me now is the Octi creator, Justin Fuse. So, Justin, you're coming out with this new app that's said to be safe for kids. I think you'll understand if there are people watching who think that's an oxymoron.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with all the challenges we have in social media today, it's not surprising that people are suspicious of new things, but I think what we all need to be really cognizant of is technology's ability to make everything better, also, to make things safer, to use machine learning, artificial intelligence to actually make this a better experience for kids, and also not underestimate the ability of technology to sort of take out some of the social issues that we've heard about with the other platforms and to sort of level the playing field for kids to create with and have fun together, which is really the point of all of this.
Right. The problem with this, Justin, is you create an app, and then once it's out there, it's really hard for you to control what people ultimately do with it, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, that's true of every platform, right? If you have a certain level of scale, you start to lose the ability to monitor every single little detail of what's happening on a platform. But there are new technologies, there's new ways, especially when you create a new platform from scratch with a lot of these learnings from the other platforms in mind. You can create something new and fun and sort of be able to, as it grows, grow with it and be wary of some of the problems that the other platforms have seen already.
So what's built into yours that makes it different and safe?
Thank you for asking. So the safety part, a big part of what we think is safe is a lot of the reports about social media making kids feel bad about themselves, feel bad about sort of their life circumstance, whatever it may be, and look to these creators, these influencers that have, you know, nice things, nice houses, cars, planes, whatever it may be, and make content with those and feel somehow like worse about their own life, which is probably still pretty great. We use the power of augmented reality to create these great fun worlds for kids to play in. Everyone gets to play, everyone gets the cool toys, everyone gets the fun things to create with, and it creates a more of a communal social dynamic that is less comparing what I have to what you have, because everyone has access to the same toys. And so that's it was a lot of heavy tech to make a world like that. And that's you hear a lot about the metaverse, you hear Facebook talking about the metaverse. This is where we sort of our version of that and where we believe this is headed.
Good, good. Well, listen, there are dozens of new apps out there, and I know it's a competitive space and you put a lot of work into it. It's called Octi, and we wish you all the best. Justin Fuse, the CEO, thanks for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Some breaking news here now, an update on a story we just brought you at the beginning of our broadcast tonight. The Athletic has just reported the National Women's Soccer League Commissioner, Lisa Baird, and the General Counsel, Lisa Levine, have now been ousted from their roles following allegations that a major coach in that league, Paul Riley, had sexually coerced multiple players. Not yet known yet who will take their place. FIFA is now investigating the claims, and as we reported earlier on, all of the games in that league scheduled for this weekend canceled, the season on hold for now.
It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
President Biden earlier today on Capitol Hill, which you're seeing right now, saying Democrats will get a multi-trillion-dollar spending deal done no matter how long it takes. We're talking trillions of dollars here, but like we said last night, President Biden's not the most important Joe in D.C. right now. More on that ahead. President Biden making a high-stakes trip to the Hill today to negotiate not with Republicans, but with fellow Democrats. The president, Democratic centrists and progressives still at odds over his big spending plan.
I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks. We're going to get it done.
Well, 6 minutes does not appear to be in the cards. Progressives suggesting there will be no vote today. Someone who gets our vote, though, on how to explain all this and where it's headed is Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of our partner publication, The Hill, and also Jonathan Cott with us, former senior advisor to Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. So, Bob, let's start with you. 6 months looks like that's probably more likely than 6 minutes right now. Do you think the president went in there and was banging on the table or begging?
Well, I think maybe a combination. I mean, it was a rough week for Democrats. They are in kind of a civil war now, and I think it's good to have kind of a cooling off period. This is going to be tough. I think it's going to be, as far as getting both bills done, I think it's going to be all the way to Christmas. This is just going to be a heavy lift. Lift.
All right, so Jonathan, we talked about Senator Manchin and how he's really the most powerful Joe on the Hill right now. What do you think President Biden said to him today?
I think they probably continued their negotiations and their conversations. Senator Manchin has a great relationship with President Biden. I think he's been upfront and clear with him the entire time. Point out that, Scranton, Pennsylvania and Farmington, West Virginia are not that far apart. So they grew up with the same values, trying to take care of the same people. And I'm sure they're going to find a way to work together on this. Senator Manchin wants to get something done. That's why he's in Washington. That's why he stays here. And I think we will. And I think Bob's right. We're probably looking at a late December deadline instead of a early October one.
Interesting, Jonathan, because you said deadline. One of the takeaways seemed to be today anyway that they don't want any deadlines because that's sort of what tripped them up on this one anyway. Bob, how important is it for President Biden to get a win on this at some point eventually?
Oh, it's huge. And I think there will be a win. It's not going to be $3.5 trillion. I don't think it's going to be $1.5 trillion. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. But he needs the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Joe Biden ran as a bipartisan candidate. He needs a bipartisan win for his reelection in 2024. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the joke, Jonathan, and I'm sure you've heard it because you were a senior advisor to Senator Manchin, but the joke has been that he should be a Republican. But we were talking about it today, and in some ways, he's actually more valuable to them as as a Democrat based on what he's doing here.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lifelong Democrat. He always has been, always will be. He's representing the Democrats and Republicans in West Virginia. I mean, I heard him say it 1,000 times. He's not a Washington Democrat. He's not a national Democrat. He's a West Virginia Democrat. But at the end of the day, the people of West Virginia, Democrats and Republicans, elected him. So he's looking to get something done for them, whether it's with Democrats or Republicans. And by the way, I don't think there's a December deadline. I just think this probably goes till December, and we're all here, December 27th talking about this.
Right. No, I get you. I certainly understand. Bob, I'm curious, how much of this do you think people are really going to remember a year from now? I mean, polls show that Democrats could lose the Senate and the House. Do you think it'll be because of this, if they do?
Well, certainly, I think that the big bill spending trillions of dollars has mixed polls. So, I mean, if you look at history, the House is likely to flip. The Senate, I think, is a jump ball. I think they're going to remember, they're going to judge Biden for what he did and his poll numbers. And his poll numbers, as we know, over the last couple months have gone south.
Jonathan, I'll leave the last word with you, or one of the last words anyway. Where do you think this ends up? And what is the scorecard at the end of all this? Let's say it is in December, as you suggest, and this thing does come in. Let's say the infrastructure bill passes and the spending bill comes in somewhere between 1.5 and 2.1 trillion. Who are the winners and who are the losers? What's the scorecard in the end?
I think the American people are the winners if that's the case. And I think Democrats should all run on the Biden economic agenda. This is a moderate, pragmatic approach. And if I were a Democrat running in a tough race in 2022, I would run on the Biden economic agenda and these two bills, because people like what's in them. People like getting their roads fixed. They like having internet access where they don't have it now. They like clean water. And they certainly like taking care of kids who need it and seniors. So I think that all polls well, and Democrats should definitely run on that and run positive.
Yeah. All right, it's both to have you. Great to have both of you. Jonathan Cott, former senior advisor to Senator Manchin, and also Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief with our partners over at The Hill. Have a good weekend, gentlemen. Thanks again.
Thanks.
You too.
Don't forget, stay tuned to On Balance with Leland Vittert. Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell coming up. Florida Rep Mike Waltz joined the show. That's after our show coming up right here. And we have more ahead as well. Heading to the batting cages for tonight's American Snapshot and a message about baseballs you're going to want to see. Next. We started tonight with a message, hug your daughters, and we're going to expand it a bit on the way out for our American Snapshot. Hug your kids and your grandkids, too. That message comes from a man who left a bucket of baseballs at the local batting cages, hoping something that brought him joy in the past will spread some happiness in the future. There was a note on the bucket that said he had found the baseballs in his garage. He used to pitch them to his son and his grandson. His son's now 46, his grandson 23. I'm 72, he wrote, what I won't give to pitch a couple of buckets to them. They have both moved away. So if you're a father, cherish those times. You won't believe how quickly they will be gone. A great message, and that's our snapshot. They reunited at the batting cages. Have a good weekend. On Balance, next.